I'm Judy Scotsko, President of the Jefferson Park Neighborhood Association. We, together with Natick newspapers, the Jefferson Park Chamber of Commerce, the Gladstone Park Chamber of Commerce, Portage Park Neighborhood Association, and Six Corners Association are sponsors of this event. We'd like to thank the Copernicus Center for the use of their auditorium. The format of tonight's event is as follows. Each candidate will make an opening statement that will last 3 minutes. The questions will be answered in a 2-minute answer, and there will be a 1-minute rebuttal. There will be a final question that the candidates will ask each other that will take 2 minutes apiece, and then there will be closing statements of 3 minutes. We've asked the candidates not to use any electronic devices. We ask the audience to abide by a few simple rules. No shouting, no signage. Please hold all your applause until the end of the event, and any kind of interruption will not be tolerated. You'll be asked to leave, and we thank you for your cooperation. We're very fortunate to have 2 qualified candidates for alderman. I personally have worked with both of them. They're very intelligent and committed individuals. They're also kind of hot, too. And
well,
my wife is here. Wait a minute.
And we look forward to an interesting and lively discussion. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Jarafsky, our moderator.
All right. We got a hot moderator, too, I might add.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Without saying.
yes, this goes without saying. All right, gentlemen, this is the 3rd time, as I was just telling you, I've moderated a debate featuring you two, so I'm looking forward to it. And we'll start with the opening remarks, 3 minutes each, and John Garrido goes first.
happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm sure this is exactly how you plan on spending your evening. So the last time we met, I spoke to you about why I was running for alderman. And I told you the story of how 2 would-be car thieves brutally beat me, and one offender stood over me and fired 2 shots at me point blank. I suffered a fractured cheekbone, dislocated jaw, and 37 stitches to my mouth. Thank God the offender missed when he shot at me. What happened, though, is it was one of the worst days of my entire life, but it was also one of the best days because it put things in perspective for me. I learned that while there's absolutely nothing else that matters more than your safety, if you're not safe where you live or at home or at work, nothing else matters. And that's why I believe that as alderman, you can do so much more than you can as a lieutenant. So that's why I'm running for alderman. It's that passion that I believe is the same skill set that you need to be an alderman and to be a police officer. Now you're about to receive, over the next 3 weeks, a landslide of negative campaigning. Mailer after mailer. It's going to come on TV, probably radio, not sure. But what I want you to keep in mind is that I'm going to treat this job just like I do as a police officer. When I get a call for help, I respond and I help. I don't ask your party affiliation. It doesn't matter and it shouldn't matter. So all I'm asking is that you make an informed decision when you go to the polls on April 7th. And for the record, I am running as an independent. And I am not affiliated with any Tea Party. Matter of fact, Ben, I like coffee. Thank you.
All right. Are we supposed to hold applause? Please hold applause until at the end, unless you're applauding me. And Alderman Arena.
Good evening, everybody, and happy St. Patrick's Day. 4 years ago, I was honored to win this position for many reasons, and one of the biggest ones was because I believe in this neighborhood, I believe in the city, and I believe in its potential. And I think right now, here in the 45th Ward and in the city of Chicago was one of the most exciting times for me in the last 20 years. You know, I think back of the 20 years that Joe and I have lived here and raised our kids here, and when we moved in and saw that things just weren't moving and we really didn't have a voice, we didn't have a conversation going about economic development, about participation, there was no engagement. There was no center to our neighborhoods. And over the last 4 years, we've seen the potential. We've seen what we can achieve by working together. Not in one neighborhood or another, or the north end or the south end or the east end or the west end, but across the entire 45th Ward, and if I may, the entire northwest side. Because this is more than just about political boundaries. This is about the area we live in and how we can have cultural diversity, that we can have cultural dynamics and entertainment options right here in our neighborhoods that augment the opportunities that we have downtown and in other neighborhoods. And so we've seen that we can bring these things just by having a conversation amongst ourselves and with the rest of the city. So we've brought people to our neighborhoods by bringing museums, the National Veterans Art Museum, Filament Theater, the Copernicus Center, the Portage Theater, Gift Theater, the Ed Paschke Arts Center. These are creating opportunities for us, not just for us culturally, but us from an economic standpoint. So along with those things have come new businesses, over 80 new businesses opening in the last 4 years. These are things that we are going to use. We've already done it. I know I've seen many of you out at restaurants and at shows. But it's bringing people from other neighborhoods. The other night, I was going to a meeting about the redevelopment of 4901 West Irving Park Road. And a woman came up to me and said, "What town am I in?" I said, "Well, where are you from?" She said, "Well, I'm from a suburb." I said, "Well, you're in Chicago. This is Portage Park." She said, "Wow, I had no idea." So we're part of Chicago. We're part of the vibrancy of Chicago. And the conversation we're having tonight and ongoing in the next 4 years is about opportunity. And I look forward to that opportunity.
All right. Thank you, Alderman. The way the format works is that I will ask a question, and one candidate will get a 2-minute response. The other candidate gets a 2-minute response, and then they each get 1-minute rebuttals. So the first question will go to Alderman Arena, and this is the question. Much is often said about what is wrong in the ward, while at the same time, the 45th remains a desirable place for families to call home, including those of our two candidates. What do you feel are the community's strongest assets, and how can these be built upon to further improve the area? Alderman Arena?
The people. The people here are an incredibly diverse and engaged population. I've met senior citizens that are longtime city workers. I've met young families that have just moved here from other neighborhoods or moved back into the generational family home. And I think over the last 4 years, those conversations, public meetings, ward night meetings, just meetings on the street or at Family Fruit Market when I'm doing the grocery shopping, have been incredibly enlightening. I have learned so much about the depth of knowledge of our community, the range, the number of artists that we have living here, professionals of all stripes. So I think our biggest asset is the people, their background, the history. The amount of history that folks know about this neighborhood is just amazing. We need to capture that and continue to build on that.
Thank you. John Garrido. John?
I would say it's the neighborhoods, the strong bonds that these communities have. Whether you're in Independence Park or Old Irving or in Six Corners, Gladstone Park, Jefferson Park, those communities are very tight-knit. They come together, they stick together, and they really have a sense of ownership of their neighborhoods, which is what I love about it. anything, whether it's coming together for an event when Dennis Tisdale was brutally attacked and we put together a fundraiser for him, we filled Portage Theater. People from not just the OLV community, but from outside the community came together to help that family. And that's the thing that I believe is truly great about these neighborhoods is they really do stick together.
John Arena, you have a 1-minute rebuttal.
You know, I was at the Tinsdale event, and I think that's a great example of how the community comes together to support each other. And, you know, it really is about that coming together. And it's less about what neighborhood you're from, but how can we work together to improve our area. And that sharing is really the most exciting thing. And we've seen example after example. Jessica who's at St. Cornelius, a young woman with cancer who the community there is rallying around, and I know many of you have helped out. I know John's helped out with that. These are the things that we see as neighborhoods, and in a big city like ours, a lot of times people assume, you know, everybody's got their head down and minding their own. We really do look out for each other.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Garrido?
Just to add to the way the community comes together, when we put together the Run with Debbie, the memorial run for the principal from Hitch, Deborah Reese, we put that together in less than 6 weeks, and almost 200 people came out for it, and I believe it's going to be bigger this year. And that was the neighborhoods over there of Jefferson Park came together with Gladstone Park, and it was the communities within St. Tires and Hitch. Everything just runs together, and they're really very strong ties. Right here in this theater, we did Rock the Badges to raise money for the families of fallen police officers and firefighters. This place is almost full. Everybody just comes out. No matter what event you put together, they come out. Look, it's St. Patrick's Day. You're all here.
You're all here.
Okay. Our next question. I'm sure everybody in the theater is aware that in addition to this election, we're also having a mayoral runoff election. So, who are you endorsing in the mayoral race, and why are you supporting that candidate? Please tell us the strengths and weaknesses of the two candidates. And just to remind everybody, that would be Rahm Emanuel and Jesus Garcia are the two candidates. John Garrido?
Okay, well, I'm not endorsing any candidate in the mayoral race. As alderman, we have to work with whoever is going to be the mayor. I want to represent the entire community, and that's citizens that vote for Mayor Emanuel, and that's citizens that vote for Chuy Garcia. So they both have their different variations and their different strengths and weaknesses, but it really is, it doesn't matter what I think as to who's the better candidate. It boils down to, am I going to be able to work with either candidate that gets in? And the fact remains for me, yes, I'll be able to work with either candidate to get things done. And to add to that, it's a matter of, you don't have to be a rubber stamp for any mayoral candidate. And I believe that a rubber stamp of no is just as bad as a rubber stamp of yes.
Alderman Arena?
So we have two qualified candidates for mayor, and I think we're incredibly lucky to be in this position, that there is a dialogue going on over the mayor's race. I'm not endorsing either candidate because my job on the city council and the job of the city council, that's what we need to reform if we're going to have this city start moving forward. We need a council that, regardless of who is on the fifth floor and in the big chair on the council floor, that we look at their proposals with a critical eye, that we evaluate them not from who supported us in the last election, but are these good ideas? Are these ideas good for the 45th Ward? Are they good for the city of Chicago? And for the past 4 years, that's exactly what I've done. And the issue of whether you vote yes or no, there is no right answer, except in that particular legislation. And the value that I have, the role of alderman, I need to hold my vote as having value. And that vote goes to something for it when it meets the standards of our communities, when it meets the standards for our city, and not a minute sooner. If I can use that to improve a piece of legislation, so that, and as I have, by improving the city budget and the way it's implemented, then it's a yes. And if not, then it's a no. And I would say that my record, as Dick Simpson analyzed the divided roll call votes of being 43% for proposals and 57% against, is exactly where it needs to be. I would ask John to tell me which votes. Was it one of the 3 budgets that I disagreed with? Was it the redux of the parking meter deal? Which one of those votes that I took should have been offered up for some political gain?
Okay, thank you. John Garrido, a 1-minute rebuttal.
All I would say is that whoever the mayor is at the time, you need to be able to work with people to get things done in your community. The number one priority when you're voting has to be our ward. You, the community, has to be the priority. No other political agenda, or just to be able to say, I'm the guy who votes against the mayor the most. That's my point. You got to vote based on how it first affects our community and then beyond.
Alderman Arena, a 1-minute rebuttal.
So I voted against the digital billboards, which is a massive giveaway of advertising revenue. I voted against the speed cameras at a time when we are critical, when we have corruption in the red camera system. Should I have voted for that? Parking meter redux, another giveaway to a corporate interest. The DePaul Arena, a $55 million giveaway to a private institution and a wealthy hotel. You could walk through every single vote that I've taken. And again, I would pose to John to analyze those things if he wanted to take the time and tell me why I should have voted for or against, or what would he have done in those situations. My decisions are based on analysis, third-party analysis, so that I have the best information. And when it's wrong for the city and wrong for the ward, that's the way I vote.
Thank you. Okay, question number 3. One of the most hotly debated issues in the ward over the past year has been the proposed 48-unit apartment building at Long and Argyle near the Jefferson Park Metro Station. In letters distributed in the neighborhood, Alderman Arena charged that his opponent, John Garrido, has made the issue political. Meanwhile, John Garrido has criticized Alderman Arena's zoning review process. Will each candidate please elaborate and discuss his vision for the site? We start with Alderman Arena.
So the property at Argyle and Long is joined with the properties across the street from this building and the vacant property behind Veterans Square as potential redevelopment sites. And we all know, going back 10 years, we've had any number of developments proposed. And across the street, I was here in this room well over 10 years ago when they were talking about a 10-story building. The community spoke, and that building has not been built. There was no zoning review process then. There was no dialogue with the community. Cowley site, there was a proposal for a parking garage, 7 stories, 10 stories. No review process, no reason for doing it, no plan. Argyle and Long is the same thing. It's sat empty for years. None of these parcels participate in our economy, producing revenue that can help abate our property taxes. We need these parcels to come back into the economy. How we get there is through the dialogue that we've started. A proposal came forward. It was vetted. It was brought to the community's pushed back, the proposal's back with the developer. We're in process. Over and over again, I've used this process to work with the community to get to a community consensus on a 70,000 square foot print facility on Northwest Highway, or a senior housing, 98-unit senior housing facility behind the Jewel at Six Corners, or most recently, and John attended the meeting, 4901 West Irving Park, where we're going to have a $16 million investment in a parcel that's been vacant for 10 years. These are the things we do. We work together
Okay.
to come up with a solution.
Thank you. Mr. Garrido.
So the letter says I made it political. The residents of that community found out about the project when it was leaked out in the Natick newspaper. They didn't find out about it from the alderman. The alderman himself admitted that he was aware that there were proposals coming in as much as a year before they finally started, when it came out in the Natick newspaper. 1,500 people signed a petition against this project. That's why it got tabled, not because of any other reason. He states in his letter that he had a zoning meeting, one of his secret zoning meetings that nobody's really quite sure who's on the board and when they happen. So these are the reasons why people get aggravated. I'm not making this political. I had nothing to do with passing that petition around to get those signatures. It's just another example of how he doesn't really, he says that he includes the community, but he really doesn't include the community. The community finds out about these projects either being leaked out or they start to, where people start getting signatures on petitions, and then finally maybe he'll have a community meeting. Maybe. There still hasn't been a community meeting about this. So the difference is that when I'm in office, I will put any proposal, immediately make it available to the community within the first 24 hours. And that's so everybody knows about it. That way we can have a conversation at the very beginning and not have to send the developer back to the drawing board 3 and 4 times. Let's get them right up front so they know exactly what it is that the community wants and what the community will support, so then we don't waste time and that we can get these projects going instead of the project languishing for over a year to the point where then when it gets leaked out, the community goes out and gets signatures, and then somehow it becomes political and somehow it's my fault.
Thank you. Alderman Arena, please.
So if it's a secret meeting, how do you know about it?
You put it in your letter.
Okay. So a secret meeting that Judy Schlasko, the president of the JPNA, was part of the zoning review committee of members of our community that come together and look at proposals. So if I put a proposal on the in front of a group of residents to ask for advice and vet it out, and this proposal started out at 60 units, was driven down, was completely out of character with the community, was vetted and reviewed to a point where we thought it was worth bringing it to the community. That's the process that we've used on a 70,000 square foot print facility that's now built and providing 45 jobs in the 45th Ward. This concentration on an aspect of the process without looking at the entire process and saying, if a community meeting happens, every single proposal that has come through my office has gone to a community meeting.
Okay, thank you. John Garrido, please.
And if we can talk about proposals, he mentioned the senior building down in Six Corners. Now that's a project that came up at the same time as another project up in Gladstone Park. That project was worked on for a couple years by the Gladstone Park Chamber of Commerce and the Polish National Alliance. That was a project that the Gladstone Park community wanted. It was a senior building, 62 and over,
There was
with
never
a
any
cafe,
public meeting.
with a cafe at the ground floor and a theater. The community wanted it, and we couldn't get a meeting from him. Instead, he had a meeting down in Six Corners over the Triangle area. That community stood up and didn't want it. That community meeting, which has been videotaped, it was clear they didn't want that project there. 98 units, 37 parking spaces in a residential community. So what he did is he ignored 2 communities. He ignored the Triangle community and put the project there, and he ignored the Gladstone community and didn't put the project there. And I'm the only one to sign a pledge that I will not upzone Long and Argyle. You haven't.
Okay, next question has to do with campaign mailers. Many people throw them in the recycling bin, but for those who read them, they realize they often include attacks by one candidate on the other. These attack pieces are usually paid for by political action committees. We would like each candidate to set the record straight and correct any falsehoods which he feels have been published on any campaign piece in the past few months. We start with John Garrido.
Did you like the one that came out today with the hat? That was pretty entertaining.
Are we starting with me or him?
Oh, sorry.
John Garrido.
Oh,
John
is that
Garrido,
Arena?
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it's John Garrido starts this one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So usually when a candidate goes negative, it's because they don't have a record to run on. And you're going to see a lot of negative coming. But basically, like I said before, I am not running as a Republican candidate. I'm running as an independent. I am not affiliated with any Tea Party. Let's see, what else? I think so far that's all that's come. That's all that's come my way, is that I'm the Tea Party Republican rubber stamp for the machine Democrat mayor. Did I get it all? So, none of it's true.
Alderman Arena.
So look, we make statements, public statements, all right? This is what it is. John Garrido's run for office 3 times. When he ran as a Republican for Cook County Board President, he declared, I am a Republican, always have been, and always will be a Republican. I really don't care if John's a Republican or not, okay? And if a voter cares about whether he is or not, they'll look it up and they'll see he made that statement. For me, this isn't about Republican or Democrat. This is about qualities in the 45th Ward. How do we move forward? He just made a statement, I don't have a record to run on. 80 businesses developed in the 45th Ward, cultural attractions, conversations about development that weren't even in anybody's mind for 20 years. 2 decades of stagnation, 4 years of progress, moving in the right direction. I will run on my record, have run on my record. We will continue the work that we've done over the last 4 years into the next 4 years. This isn't about Republican or Democrat. This is about who has the ability, the vision to move this forward in the right direction. 4 years ago, I won this seat. I've proven that I can bring people together, we can have a conversation, we can reach out to other wards, we can reach out to folks in the bureaucracy and bring investment in our infrastructure. 20 miles of streets repaved, almost 3,000 linear feet of water and sewer mains laid in the last 4 years. I'll run on my record.
Thank you. All right. Please hold the applause. Thank you. John Garrido.
Like I said, well, this one thing I agree on. This isn't about Republican or Democrat. I will treat this job just like I do as a police officer. When you call for help, I show up and help. It doesn't matter how you vote. I could care less who you vote for, and that's what should matter. But yet, you're still going to receive mailer after mailer after mailer. I've made it clear repeatedly, I am running as an independent.
Okay. Alderman Arena.
John Garrido, 200 businesses closed. That's negative. Where are his ideas to bring businesses? And in terms of integrity and honesty, we have businesses on here that aren't in the ward. We have businesses on here that are actually still open. Have we closed businesses in the 45th Ward? Yeah, I've closed some businesses. 5 social clubs have been closed by me engaging with the 16th District to get them done. We closed the Capitol Club. I'm proud as hell of that. That was terrorizing Portage Park. Knife fights, shots fired across Milwaukee Avenue, people getting hit with pipes. Yeah, we've closed some businesses. We've closed the right businesses and brought the ones that we needed to bring here.
Okay, thank you. All right. Next question, again, a development question. And it was asked, I believe, in the last debate as well. Several of the questions submitted to the debate committee referred to the frustration over the undeveloped parcels just across the street here in the Jefferson Park Business District. Buildings were demolished on those sites 10 years ago, and nothing new has been built. What is your vision for revitalizing these properties, and how would you achieve your goals, starting with Alderman Arena?
Thank you. We've seen that we can work with the community to come up with our vision. Six Corners has a master plan that we did 4 years ago that built on the conversations of almost a decade before that. That process included residents, property owners, businesses, sitting down on tables with maps spread out to define what are opportunities for redevelopment. We're talking about 4901 West Irving Park Road and the Bank of America corner right now that are in conversations with developers. And 4901 was widely well received at a community meeting of over 100 people, that we're bringing investment, businesses, and revitalizing a vacant business with a theater, grocery, and potentially a Starbucks and the first Culver's in the city of Chicago. Those are the kinds of things we can do when we come together and plan and talk about what we need to do. Here we need to do that in Jefferson Park. We have an opportunity across the street and have had conversations with the developer because we own some of that land as a city. So we are an investor at the table. And we need to see some residential development right here by the biggest transit center on the northwest side. Mixed use it would be a perfect use there. I've had personal conversations with folks that are right across the alley about what they would like to see. What is an acceptable scale? How do we design it so that it creates the best opportunity for our economy while making sure that we're preserving their quality of life?
Thank you. John Garrido, please.
The gravel lots that we have around here have been sitting vacant for decades.
Decades. Yeah.
And they're being used as parking lots. You know, I think that to motivate the developer, and most of them or many of them are some of our city lots, but some of them are held by the same developer. We need to sit down with that developer and we need to there accountable. There's certain requirements if you're going to use them as a parking lot. There's different things you have to do with landscaping. There's guardrails that have to be set up. There are certain things that you're supposed to do that aren't being done. Those lots, I believe, are being operated on a cash deal. That's revenue that's not coming into the city, and I'm not sure if it's being reported or what's going on there. But we need to hold these developers accountable for these properties because they're an eyesore. Let's face it. Regardless of what your position is or opinion is of this developer, he needs to fix these lots up, make them presentable, and either do something with them or sell them.
Thank you. Alderman Arena.
Well, paving them is not a vision, John. Paving them isn't an economy. There's no value to us from a property tax standpoint or an economy standpoint to just paving vacant lots. We've asked you, and I've run against you twice now, and for the last 4 months, haven't heard a single thing about what your vision is, and you were just asked a direct question about what is your vision for these things? What would you put there? The conversations with the developer have been happening. We've sat down with them, we've talked about them. There's financial, requirements that have to be met in terms to get somebody to start investing in a property. But going to the developer and saying, pave this, put plants on it, does nothing for us. We need to plan, we need to work together and come up with a vision. I have shown that I have a vision, and that vision comes from tens, hundreds of conversations with my communities.
Thank you. Thank you. It's up. John Garrido, please. 1 minute rebuttal.
Don't think I said pave the lots. What I said is there are requirements to hold the lots.
You have to pave it to meet those requirements, John.
Wait,
if you're going to do
let
this
him-
job,
I
you
think
have
you're
to
gonna
know
get it.
what you're
Alderman
doing.
Arena, let him finish.
You're going to have an opportunity to speak.
Go ahead.
So, this developer can develop these lots within the zoning that's there. He can start tomorrow if he wants to. How long does it take? They've been sitting empty for the 3.5 years that you've been here, and how many years before that? What are you doing to motivate, to get him? The vision is, here, how about we get the developer, if he's not going to do anything with the lots, work out a deal and have him sell them to another organization that wants to put a photography museum there. There are other things that can be done. Yes, I want to have these lots developed, but just looking the other way and allowing them to continue to use them as parking lots, what some might say illegal parking lots, that's not a plan, that's not a vision.
Okay. Move on to a
Still
next
haven't
question.
heard yours, John. We still haven't heard yours.
And this question has to do with campaign contributions, specifically in this case, campaign contributions from unions. Will your support from these unions prevent you from working in the best interest of the city to address the pension crisis? And how should the city resolve the pension crisis? We start with John Garrido.
Well, as far as my donations, a great majority of my donations have come from people like you, from just regular citizens, friends, family. That's where the majority of them came from. My largest contribution was from the Fraternal Order of Police, $20,000. That's the largest one. How is that going to impact my decision on pensions? I believe, and I've already stated, that there are ways that we can get these at least on the right track and get the city to negotiate in good faith with these unions. And the way that we need to do, I like Brendan Riley's idea. He said, let's take, there's $1.7 billion sitting in TIF funds right now. He suggested take half of that money and we can make the balloon payment that's coming up down the road here, put half of that into the pension funds, and then half of the pension money that pours into these funds, which is almost $500 million a year, can go towards those to get it paid down. I suggested that we have a casino, and the casino money, 100% of that can go towards these pensions. Once you do that, and now you're negotiating in good faith, then you can bring these unions to the table and see what we can work out. You need to have an actuarial analysis just to say, well, we have to change the retirement age, we have to increase the amount of money that they put in. That, nobody's shown that that's actually going to have any impact. Actually, it'll have a minuscule impact. It won't fix it. They need these cash infusions. Some of these unions, or these pensions are as low as 27% funded. They're supposed to be up over 90%. So we need to get ourselves back on track, and we have to make that cash infusion. And actually in 2011, that's when a statute was passed to start making changes, and it made this balloon payment that was going to be coming. He's been alderman that entire time, and not one peep out of him, nothing saying, you know what, we better start putting money aside, we better start getting ready, maybe we need to do something. Nothing. Him or the city council or the mayor, nothing, except now it's kick the can down the road.
Alderman Arena.
Well, that's not true, John. So for 4 years, I voted against 3 budgets. And in my newsletter, if you can sign up for it, John, at my website, if you want to find out what we've been doing. Every time I've made a vote like that, I have explained why. And in every single case, it's been abdication of a responsibility to the pensions. It's also been that we have not addressed the deficiency in our police force. So these are the kind of things that he can stand here and say that and tell you at the door that we've done nothing. But he needs to do his homework. And we've done our homework. As a caucus, I'm on the Progressive Reform Caucus, we have presented 8 different revenue streams to the administration, every single budget cycle. That is when this conversation happens. So we've put those ideas out there, whether it's TIF reform, whether it's LaSalle Street taxes, things that we can do that we needed to do 4 years ago, and this administration, which is the one that holds the reins on these things, has done nothing. So consider that when you decide who you're voting for mayor. But my point is, we need to honor these obligations. We have pensioners that cannot afford a reduction in benefits and an increase in property taxes. They will be forced out of their homes, out of the city, the places where they grew up. We need to honor that, but we need to look to folks to pay their fair share, to get corporations to participate in this, to come up with revenue streams that are not hitting property taxes as the first way of getting it done. So I'll continue to bring those ideas to the table, as I've done for the last 4 years, and they're there. This is a solvable problem, but we have to work together to come to it.
Thank you. John Garrido, a 1-minute rebuttal.
I believe he's on record of saying that property taxes is on the table. That is definitely a problem as far as I'm concerned, and he's all for every other new tax that he can come up with. Taxes, taxes, taxes. That's not what we need to do. We have to manage the resources that we have, manage the money that we have. Like I said, there's $1.7 billion sitting in these TIF funds, and I'll tell you what, they'll tell you, well, that money's already spoken for, it's already dedicated to certain projects. Well, sometimes you can't buy the shiny new car until you pay your bills. That's what we need to do. But what you really need to think about when you go to the polls is almost $750,000 to get this man elected and to keep him in office by one union. Almost $750,000 from the first election and this election so far. And you know what? He might become the $1 million man because we still have 3 weeks to go. That's a lot of money. Whose interest is he protecting?
Alderman, please hold your applause. Alderman Arena, 1-minute rebuttal, please.
The unions that support me are service professionals, folks that are cleaning bathrooms at O'Hare Airport and trimming your trees and paving your streets. These are your neighbors. These are not high-priced corporations. And they're not the police union either, which, as we know, with $600 million balloon payments here, I'm sure they want a police officer representing their interests, his interests, because this is his pension that we're talking about. So we've got to look at whose interest is he protecting. And if you look at independence, I have been the most independent alderman on the city council. I have spoken up for TIF reform. I have spoken against bad deals, whether it's the parking meter deal or the billboards, over and over again. So my record's clear on where I'll be. And I'll tell you a little story. When I was up for a union endorsement in the first race, I was told, well, you know, if you don't go along with our plan here, 30% of your ward is union members.
Okay.
I told them
All right.
70% are not. And so we need to represent the
Thank you,
whole.
Alderman. All right, here we go. We're moving on to question number 7. Remember, there's time constraints. We have a person in the front
Give me
row.
the 5.
This has to do with the subject that was just raised, tax increment financing. And just completed a study with my colleague Mick Dumke, if I may promote our study, which showed that in the last 4 years, the Northwest Side has not done very well in the TIF game, drawing only about 10% of the expenditures in TIF revenues, whereas the central area has gotten about 48 to 50%. What changes and reforms to the city's TIF programs would you advocate to make a more equitable spread of the money? We start with Alderman Arena.
Thank you. So the TIF program is a tool, all right? And like any tool, it can be used positively, it can be used negatively. So the problem with the TIF program is it was seen as a, silver bullet to solve all economic woes in any neighborhood. And so 163 TIFs exist across the city. Almost 2/3 of the city is under a TIF. The problem with the TIF is not that we're underperforming. We're performing exactly where we are based on how our properties increment in value. That's the most important word in TIF. We increment at a lower pace, slower pace, than places like LaSalle Street. There's neighborhoods on the west side and the south side that have zero increment, but they have TIFs. So guess what? There's no money in those TIFs. There's no money to invest. And with the city's policy of that being the economic tool to revitalize neighborhoods, it's the wrong tool for certain neighborhoods. You don't need to incentivize an 18-story with $18 million, a tall building in Lakeview that has views of the lake. That will be built and rented on its own. The economy will move that. Okay, you don't need to incentivize somebody to locate on LaSalle Street. Businesses will come there because it's LaSalle Street. We're in a strata, some of the neighborhoods like ours, that has increment and needs to close that gap between the cost to build and the rental rates that are commanded out here, which are somewhere in the range of $15, maybe $20 a square foot. But if you need $30 a square foot in order to generate the revenue to cover the note, you need to help out a little bit. And that's what TIFs are designed to do. So we need to reform it. We need to close some on both ends and use different tools to revitalize these other neighborhoods.
Thank you. John Garrido, please.
There's no doubt we need to sunset some of these TIFs, especially the ones that are in neighborhoods that obviously aren't blighted and don't need it. There's also issues with porting, and that means where if the money's not used, or that they have the ability to actually move the money from one TIF to another as long as they're adjoining, and then they move until they get them to the TIF that they want, so they can use the money for things like DePaul or Marriott. We need to utilize the money that we have there now to help get our pension funds under control. Going forward, we also need to have some restrictions on what the money can be used for and how our alderman or our city council is using that money. For example, we've got a project at 4901 West on Irving where it's going to require $2.5 million in TIF money to get it done. Well, there was a project on the table before that for Cermak Fresh Market where it wasn't going to require any TIF money at all. So maybe that project possibly could have been the project to go forward, and then we could have used that money somewhere else in the Six Corners area or the Portage Park area. So we really have to take a look at how this money is being used and where they're putting this money.
John Arena, 1 minute rebuttal.
So before Mike Challenger speaks, he probably should know what he's talking about. Mike Busas wanted TIF money to do a 65,000 square foot grocery store that would have torn down the building, vacated a city alley, and put truck traffic down Dakin Avenue and a loading dock across the street from residential homes. Now, he's professed to be the defender of the quality of life and the single-family life we have here. Yet he doesn't know that when that project was presented to me as a concept, I asked him to solve those problems. How do you get the Coke truck and the Pepsi truck and the bread truck and the meat truck to the back of your store that's in front of somebody's porch without killing their quality of life? So we're going to put money into a project that is roundly well received, as you saw in that meeting. Redevelop this parcel, do the first redevelopment for Six Corners in its entire history. That's what we're going to do.
John Garrido, 1 minute rebuttal.
Well, I spoke to Mike Busas, and he said that it didn't require any TIF money, so maybe he was mistaken.
He said, she said, John.
Exactly. He said, she said. So that project we could have worked on, but again, it was a project that needed to be presented to the community to discuss it, to see if there was a way to get those trucks where they needed to go. And again, that project was going to bring in an estimated $30 million a year in revenue to that store, over 200, up to 200 jobs that it would have brought into the community there. So it doesn't, and I'm not saying that necessarily that was the project, because there really wasn't any kind of community meeting on it. There was a little sparring in the media with him and the business owner, and then it went dead. So I guess until we talk to both of them, and I'd like to get the other side of the story to find out what actually killed the deal.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to another question dealing with charter schools. What is your position on charter schools? Are they good for the city? And would you be open to having a new charter school in the ward, John Garrido?
I've made it clear, and I've said it before, that we don't need any more charter schools. I believe that we need to focus on our neighborhood schools. I'm a member of the local school council for Hitch Elementary, and I understand how difficult it is for these schools to get by the fundraising that they have to do, the money that they need. And we also know that with CPS, a lot of the money that's coming in, the $14,000 that they spend per student, isn't really making it all the way down to the student in the classroom. So there needs to be an audit, find out where that money is going up at the upper levels, and we need to try to figure out ways to get that money to the classroom, get that money to the students, and fix our neighborhood schools before we even consider doing anything with charter schools. And there really isn't any real statistics to show that charter schools outperform public schools. You've got lots of, there's some schools that do a little bit better, and there's some other public schools that do better. So it's not that it's just a sure thing that you need to bring in charter schools.
Thank you. Alderman Arena.
So for the entire time that I've raised children in the city of Chicago, I've been a supporter of public schools. I believe in our public schools. I believe we need to invest in those, and that is our best hope for a whole range of solving a whole range of problems that ails this city. Provide a quality education, not just here in the 45th Ward, but across the city. Locally, I fought for, first and foremost, an elected school board so that we actually have a voice in the taxing body that over 50% of your tax bill goes to. And I've stood up in front of that body over and over again. I fought to get the ballot initiative for the last 3 years on the ballot, and you were allowed to vote on that because of the efforts of me and some other dedicated folks to supporting public education. We've brought 22 new classrooms to 3 schools, including Hitch Elementary. I testified at the public hearings for the capital plan for CPS, along with Debbie Reese. And John wasn't there, but the community was there, talking about the overcrowding at Hitch, talking about the overcrowding at Prussing, talking about the overcrowding at Ray. And we've succeeded in bringing those resources here. The play lot at Beaubien Elementary, where kids were skidding their knees on an bare asphalt lot. Now they have 2 play structures for 2 different age groups and a soft surface that they can play safely. So I'm proud of the work, and I think my record stands very clear on my support for public schools and quality of public education. Making sure our schools have resources like Beard to make sure they have a full-time nurse for kids who are special needs, where we had teachers having to administer drugs to them. That's unacceptable, and I'll continue to fight for those things.
Thank you. John Garrido, 1 minute rebuttal.
Debbie Reese brought those mobiles to the school, not John Arena. She worked for years to get those there, and she's the one that made that happen, and it's insulting that you're going to take credit for another
I
thing.
said worked
All right,
alongside with her,
Please.
John.
That's one more thing.
Again, mischaracterizing
And
things.
saying
is
that
not
I
the way to
wasn't
go.
there at those meetings, I've got a full-time job as a Chicago police officer, and I also am an attorney. Maybe I had court, I had something going on that day, so no, I didn't make it to that, but I did have an interview with Heather Sharon and was able to set up an interview with Heather and Debbie to be able to walk through the school and to see all the problems that were there. So I was able to help facilitate and get it out in public that there was a problem with the overcrowding there. So yes, I do work in the community. I do a lot of things in the community, John. You're the alderman, though. So
And I stood next to Debbie Reese and
Okay.
testified along
All
with
right,
her. So
all right,
I
whoa,
didn't
whoa,
say
whoa,
I
whoa.
did it.
Wait,
I
stop.
said I worked with
Alderman.
my community.
John Garrido, are you done with your comment? Does he have any time left?
Yes.
He has 4 seconds. You have anything to say?
I'm good.
All right. Now John Arena gets to talk. 1 minute rebuttal.
We worked as a community to make these things happen. I'm the alderman, you're right.
For now.
And ongoing, John. We'll get there, don't worry. I've worked with the community on these issues. That's what you do as a leader. You get together with folks, you support them, okay? You listen to folks who are carrying the torch, and you need to support them and make sure you're with them and make sure that your voice is being heard. You need to use the title to make sure that their voices carry to the appropriate decision makers. And I've done that over and over again. And I wonder if John was too busy being an attorney and a police officer, will you be too busy being an attorney and an alderman? Because I think it's very important to know whether he will be like me, a full-time alderman, or he will be using his job as an attorney as an excuse to not be there when it's important.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to question 9. It's sort of a 2-part question. It's phrased basically the same question, phrased differently for each candidate, so listen very carefully. For John Arena, the question is, if re-elected, what will you do the same and what will you do differently in the next 4 years? Please be specific. And for John Garrido, if elected, what will you do the same as the current alderman, meaning what have you learned from him, and what will you do differently? Please be specific. And we start with Alderman Arena.
Well, I think we've talked a lot about tonight about the progress that we've made. And any time you take on complex issues, you have to continually self-evaluate. How can we work better? Did this idea work versus another idea? Who's out there that we haven't talked to or brought into the conversation? Because we have a very large ward, a very large city. So we're going to continue on the path, the trajectory that we've started. And we're only in the beginnings of this. We're only in the first quarter of this game. And so we need to continue with positive leadership, a positive conversation about our community, making sure that it goes beyond the boundaries of the ward, shaking hands with my colleagues, making sure that we're working together, making sure that we're reaching out to folks and bringing them into the conversation. Things I do differently, I think I need to make sure that everybody's being heard. I just think that it's the hardest part of this is reaching everybody. And starting from zero 4 years ago, I think we've made huge inroads. A website that's active, that promotes what's going on, tells you what's going on, a weekly newsletter that's getting into everybody's mailbox, that we have an open rate of almost 40%. So continue to build on the communication with the community, making sure that we have strong delegate agencies, chambers of commerce that are actually providing the services that they're designed to provide. Making sure that if a public dollar is given, that it's used for public good and to move us forward.
Thank you. John Garrido, 2 minutes.
What do I agree with? So I would I would continue to support the arts. I think that is a good idea. I think that is one of many elements for economic development. I would have no problem continuing to work with people like Lionel Rabb, who actually is the one who brought in the Veterans Art Museum and the Paschke Center. I also agree that we need to remove these red light cameras. I believe that they're just a revenue earner, so it's not really a thing about safety. And that's about it. As far as what I would do different, get back to the basics. Going door to door, all I hear from everybody, every block, everywhere I go, the first thing that comes up is all these quality of life issues. My street hasn't been resurfaced. My curbs aren't fixed. My tree isn't getting trimmed. I have a dead tree in front of my house that I'm afraid is going to fall on my house where my daughter sleeps in her front bedroom. There's issue after issue. Airplane noise. Airplane noise is going to get worse. I got news for you. It's coming. When the project is complete, there's going to be 6 runways, east-west runways. 5 of them are going to be running through the 45th Ward. So we need to have somebody who's going to actually stand up for us and that's going to fight to reduce that noise. We're going to have somebody that's going to work to get our streets plowed during the winter, get them on the side streets and in the alleys. So there's a lot of things that I'm going to do different.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. Alderman Arena, 1-minute rebuttal.
Well, John's again said that, things aren't getting done. Almost 3,000 linear feet of sewers, 20 miles of streets repaved, not just residential, but arterial, which had to come from downtown. So working with the administration, we've gotten those things done. Nagel, Addison, Central is going to get redone this coming spring. Higgins, which was a disaster, $1.5 million project on Milwaukee Avenue. Hundreds of catch basins, 37,000 potholes filled in the 45th Ward alone. These things are getting done, and John wants to sit there and tell people it's not getting done. Okay, we've closed a gap on tree trimming when I came in the office, which was almost 2 years, down to 12 months by being more efficient in how we use our systems and grouping 311 requests to be more efficient with our services. We can look at talk about what's not done.
Thank you, Alderman Arena.
Look at what's actually been done.
John Garrido, please, 1-minute rebuttal.
So when the potholes aren't getting filled and done, it's the mayor's fault. But when they are getting done, it's your doing. 20 miles of streets repaved. We're still waiting for that FOIA to come in, but my guess is that it's probably less than was paved the previous 4 years before you came in.
Your guess. Why don't you know before you speak?
Oh, we'll know, and it'll probably be on a mailer. And finally, as far as whether I'm going to be a full-time alderman or not, absolutely. I'll take a leave of absence from the Chicago Police Department, and I will not practice law. I will be a full-time alderman, and I will focus on our community, and I'm going to work for you.
Okay, well, now we get to the, all right, hold on now. Just calm down, everybody. We're almost at the end of debate when you can really cheer. All right, this is question number 10, and each candidate gets to pose a question to the other candidate. So I've not seen these questions. It should be pretty interesting. There will be a 2-minute response time, but no rebuttal. Mr. Garrido gets to ask his question to Alderman Arena first. Mr. Garrido.
Okay. Arena at odds with Jefferson Park Advisory Council, Natick News. A war of words has erupted between Alderman John Arena and the attorney for New Portage Theater building owner, Natick News. He's also combative and makes conflicts personal, qualities that have hurt his efforts in the ward and at City Hall. He votes against the mayor more often than any other alderman. We're all for strong opposition, but not when it stops the conversation from moving forward, Chicago Sun-Times. Early vote returns through Friday show that we have 49.2% of the vote, just short of 50% plus one we need to avoid second round runoff. We need 53 more votes to win. John Arena. And John Garrido put fish bait outside our office this morning. John Arena. The question to you is, do you think your combative and dishonest behavior is the reason almost 55% of 45th Ward voters voted against you?
Well, John, that's interesting because that means 60% of the people voted against you. So own that. Here's the thing. Actually, 61. He only got 39%. So my job is to demand from people their best. And when they are beholden to us because they've received public money, I will demand from them their best, and I will demand that they honor their commitments. And so if I ask for something that is due us on behalf of our community and it's not received, I will go to bat for you and I will go to war for you. Whether it's on the city council or whether it's here in the ward, in the boardrooms of chambers or advisory committees. They are delegate agencies that receive public money. And for years, they took that money and did nothing with it. It's why I inherited a 20-year decline, because those agencies did nothing to benefit you. So I will continue to demand the highest standards from people, as I do for myself. This isn't about being combative. This is about doing the job. This is leadership. There are some people you agree with and some people you don't. It's about results, though. What are the results? The results are we have invested in our infrastructure, we have invested in our businesses, and seen 80 new businesses come to this ward after a desolation. We see millions and millions of dollars of investment in our communities, as we've talked about at length tonight. It's not about combative, it's about results. The results are there. Everybody sees it, except, it seems, John Garrido.
Okay, now, Alderman Arena, you get to ask your question to Mr. Garrido.
John, a few weeks ago, you offered discounts in exchange for votes. You got busted. You told the newspaper you didn't realize it was illegal. Then you told Fox News you absolutely, and this is a quote, absolutely believe it's not illegal. You're an attorney and a police officer. What's your answer now? Did you not know it's illegal to buy votes, or do you think it is in fact illegal to buy votes?
I did not offer, personally, a discount for votes. So it was an offer by numerous businesses that I posted up on Facebook to bring in your receipt after you vote, and they would give you a discount. So if the alderman thinks that myself and all these business owners should be prosecuted, that's unfortunate, because on election day, Community Tavern posted on Facebook, bring in your receipt after you vote for a free drink. Portage Grounds offered on election day, bring in your receipt after you vote and get, I believe it was a free cup of coffee. Once it was brought to our attention, and it was by Heather Sharon, and I believe she brought it to the attention of Community Tavern and Portage Grounds, everybody stopped. Not one person collected on it. Now, it's something that has gone on for years. You had Uber that offered free rides to go vote. You've had NBC5 that posted up on their page places where you can go to Park 57 and show your receipt and get a free dessert, or where you can go and show your I voted and you get a free drink somewhere. So it hasn't been litigated, so it's still unclear if the actually offering something after you voted. The way the statute is written is if it's an incentive to induce somebody to go vote is where the problem is. So yeah, it's still a gray area as far as if what all of these businesses, including what I did, is illegal or not.
It's very clear, and the
Thank
statute
you,
is
thank
very
you.
clear.
All right, here we
If you're
go.
an attorney,
Now we're
you
getting
should
to
know.
think you
the
get a
closing
rebuttal.
remarks. Thank you. And 3 minutes each, closing remarks. Alderman Arena goes first.
Thank you. I think this last question illustrates something. It's about competence, it's about integrity. If you can't admit something that in statute is absolutely clear, and I'm not an attorney and I can interpret it, and he's an attorney and a police officer and can't interpret it, that raises a question about competence to evaluate a city budget of $7 billion, or a parking meter deal, or any deal that comes across the city council. These are legal documents. If he doesn't know, he should have asked. It is perfectly clear in the statute that you do not offer under your name with your position on the ballot number and try to say, I wasn't asking for your vote. in lieu of a discount at a business? I'll leave it to you to interpret that. I'll close with this. I said earlier, we are first quarter of this game. And when you are winning the game, you don't change quarterbacks. When you see that your game plan is working, you double down there. We need to continue to work together. We will continue to work together after April 7th, and for the next 4 years, we will continue to see the prosperity that we have seen over the last 4 years. We will continue to work on the level of the City Council to make sure that we honor our commitments that were made to our pensioners while protecting the economies locally. We need to come to the table and deal with these issues head on. I have shown the capacity to do this over and over and over again. And we can work together to make these things happen and have an honest and open dialogue like we have for the last 4 years. I need your vote to continue to do that. You can vote early on March 23rd. If you're traveling for the Easter holiday or for spring break, make sure you come out and vote early. But I need you to vote for me so we can continue on this track. We have nothing but opportunity ahead of us. And I will work with all of you, regardless of how you vote, because I will never know. But as I've done for the last 4 years, you are welcome on my ward night. You are welcome in my office, and my staff is at your disposal. And we will work together to continue to improve the 45th Ward. Thank you.
Okay, all right. And next up, all right, okay. All right, you're enthusiastic. I like that in you. All right, John Garrido, your turn.
So as you go to the polls to vote, I think you have to ask yourself, why did almost 55% of the ward vote against Alderman Arena? Now, he could say 60% voted against me, but I'm not the alderman. 55%, almost 55%, voted against him. And I think the answer is clear. There is a disconnect between our alderman and our community. And that's why I'm running for alderman. I'm running for alderman because he hasn't been doing his job for the last 3.5 years. Our community doesn't want secret zoning meetings. They want their voices heard when there's proposals for dense projects in their neighborhood. They want to be informed, and they want an alderman who's going to stand up and fight for them with all this airplane noise. They want an alderman who will fight against raising your property taxes, not one who's going to fight for raising your property taxes. They want an alderman who's going to work with local businesses and not just show up for the ribbon cutting and take credit for them coming to the ward. They want an alderman who will get back to the basics, who's going to maintain our services, who's going to resurface our streets, fix our curbs, who's going to get the snow plowed on the side streets, and is going to trim our trees. And they want an alderman who will not say and do anything to get elected, even if it's untrue. I will be an alderman who will put the community first. I will only be beholden to you, not an organization who spends almost $750,000 to get him elected and keep him elected. Again, that's almost $750,000 that they're spending on this guy. What are they getting in return? Together, we can do this. And I need your help. I need you to get out to the polls, and I need you to vote. I need you to bring a friend with and get them to vote. And like you said, there's many, many ways to vote. You can vote by mail. Right now, you can do a request. They'll send the ballot to your house, and I don't even think you need a stamp to send it in. You can go vote early, March 23rd through April 4th. Get it done. A lot of people are going to go on spring break and get out of town. If you know your neighbors are leaving, get them to go vote. But whatever you do, vote. I am going to work for you. I'm going to work for this community, and I'm going to make sure that we do the right thing, and your voices will be heard when I am alderman. Thank you.
Okay. All right. There you go. Now you got to applaud. You were louder when you couldn't applaud. No, just kidding. Brian wants to make a few remarks. Is that correct? Brian Natick.
Sure. On behalf of the debate committee, I would like to thank everyone for coming out today. Also, I'd like to give just a quick thank you again to our sponsors, the Jefferson Park Neighborhood Association, the Portage Park Neighborhood Association, the Six Corners Association, the Jefferson Park Chamber of Commerce, the Gladstone Park Chamber of Commerce, and Natick Newspapers. I also would like to thank the candidates and their campaign staffs for their cooperation in putting this debate on. Being an alderman is a tough job, and we're lucky to have two individuals like Mr. Garrido and Alderman Arena who want this job and who are willing to put the time and dedication that the community deserves. And also, both of them, I believe, will be in the lobby afterwards for a little meet and greet. So we invite you to stay for about the next 30 minutes, ask them some more questions. And again, don't forget to vote. Early voting, as it was said earlier, starts Monday. Again, thank you for coming out. Also, thank you to Ben, our moderator. Please give him a round of applause. And happy St. Patrick's Day.